Hello friends, welcome to the channel and thank you for watching this video. In this session, we are going to talk about translating and rotating geometries using Move tool in Ansys SpaceClaim. This video is the fifth chapter from Ansys SpaceClaim training module. You can refer the below links for other chapters from this training module. In this session, we are going to learn all the options related to moving the geometry in Ansys SpaceClaim Direct Modeler. Move option is used for translating and rotating the geometries. However, it is not just used to move the geometry from one place to another. This can also be used to modify the geometric features. We looked at pull option in the last chapter for geometry modifications. Move tool can also be used for editing the geometries, but there are some differences. We'll look at those in detail in this chapter. Let's get started. Move tool is placed over here. We looked at this option briefly during the session on sketching options. Move tool is not just used to move the object from one place to another. This can also be used to modify the features by moving geometric entities, such as surfaces, lines, or even points. We looked at the pull option in previous chapter for geometry modifications. Move tool can also be used for some modifications but limited to the actions of moving the geometric entities. Let's take a closer look at the Move tool. On this displayed CAD model, let's try to modify these features. There are two ways you can do the selections for Move tool. First, you can select the surface you want to move and then select the Move tool. Or you can click the Move tool first and then select the surface you want to move. Both ways surfaces will be selected for moving. You can select multiple surfaces by holding the Control key. Before going further into the many options of Move tool, let's understand the process steps. These process steps will be common for all the options we are going to see in the Move tool. So first, we need to select the geometry we want to move. Let's select this face. Second, you need to select the direction of move. The triad displayed over here is called a move handle. In this move handle, you can see that there are three different arrows such as blue, red and green. These are the three translation directions. Then there are three rotation arrows. Those are green, blue and red. These rotation arrows are used to rotate the geometry about the three different axes. So once we select the surface we want to move, we can then select one of the six directions, one of the six arrows for the direction. Let's select this arrow for the translation direction. Once the arrow is selected, you can see that the selection direction arrow has turned blue and other arrow color grayed out or faded. We can now just hold the left click and move the cursor in that selected direction. The mouse cursor does not need to be on the blue arrow, it can be anywhere on the screen. You can also see the number that is displayed here. That is nothing but the moving distance. At any given point of time, you can release the left click and provide this distance. You can see that the face is moved exactly by the distance we specified. You can now click anywhere else on the white screen to end the move operation. This looks like similar to the pull tool that we have learned in the previous chapter of this training module. Let's undo this step and try to pull this surface. The result is somewhat similar. You might be thinking then, what is the difference between move and pull tool? Well, yes, both options are actually different with some unique features. However, in this case, the result look the same since we are moving just one face. Let's try to move the complete whole using the Move tool as well as the Pull option just to see the difference in outcome. Let me first undo the earlier operation. Select all the whole surfaces. Let me use the box option for this selection. Using the box option, we can select the whole box at once. We can then click on the Move tool. Let's choose this translation direction for the movement. Hold the left click and move the cursor in the translation direction. You can see that the entire whole is moving in that particular direction. So basically, Move tool is translating the whole from one place to another, but its size is not changing. In short, we are just changing the location of this whole. Let's now use the Pull option for these surfaces. Let me undo this step. The surfaces are already selected. Let me now switch to the Pull option. Let me use the default pull direction and try to pull these faces. You can see that as we are pulling the faces, its size is changing in all the directions. Pull operation basically offsets the faces inward or outward, but in all directions. So overall, the main difference here we saw is pull changes the size and shape of the hole, and move tool just changes the location of hole if all the hole faces are selected. So if we conclude the difference, then it will be like pull tool changes the size and shape and move tool moves the surface without changing its size and shape. Let's look at this difference for a different surface. Let me undo the last step. Let's now select a curved surface. If we use the pull option, then it will reduce or increase the size of this fillet. You can see the radius is changing. On the other hand, if we use the move tool for this, it just translates the fillet in the direction we have selected. It is not changing the size of the fillet. The radius is the same. The number you are looking at is the location from its original position. Hence, if you want to change the size of a geometric feature, then use the pull tool. And if you want to change just the location of a feature by either translating or rotating, then you can use the move tool. When we clicked on the surface using the move tool, you can see that a default direction is displayed here, which is always perpendicular to the surface. At this time, it is anchored to the center or axis of this fillet. What if you want to change the direction? You can do this using the tool guide options over here. For changing the direction, you can use this option called Move Direction. Once you select this option and hover your mouse over an edge, you will notice the move direction aligns with the edge or parallel to the edge. You can see the updated red arrow over here. However, if you hover your mouse on a surface instead of a line, the direction is updated as perpendicular to the surface. So, if I want to move this round in this horizontal direction, I can either select this line as the direction or this face for the direction. Let me select this face. You can see that once I have selected this face, a perpendicular direction is set, which can be used to translate this fillet in this direction. So this is how you can use the geometric entities like edges, and faces to set the direction you want. Now we can hold the left click and move the cursor to move this fillet in the direction. We can also provide the distance for the exact moving distance. Let's look at some other ways of using the Move tool. We can use the Up to option for moving the geometries. Let's select this hole once again using the box option. Let's select a direction for the translation. Let me select this direction for the translation. We can then select the Up to option from the tool guide over here and select a reference or a target geometry for the move distance. Let me select an axis of this cylindrical geometry. We can select the axis two ways. We can select the axis directly, which is displayed over here, or we can just select a cylindrical surface to which the axis belongs to. So let's go with selecting the cylindrical surface. You can see that the hole is moved till this point in the direction we had selected. The move handle or move axis is aligned with the axis of the cylindrical surface. So there is one important thing to note here. Move operation is reference to the move handle and not to the geometry. In short, move distance is calculated from the move handle center point to the up to geometry. Let's try to understand this in more detail. Let me undo this operation. Let's select the whole surfaces once again using the box tool. You can see that the move handle is placed automatically once you select any particular entity. It is always try to put at the geometric center of the entities we selected. Let's say if you want to move this hole and coincide this point with this point, then you need to anchor this move handle to this point first so that the moving origin will become this point. You can do this by using the anchor tool over here. Click on this option and then click on this point. You can now notice that the hole is still selected for moving, but the move handle is referencing the new location, which is this point. Let's now move this hole. You can use this anchor tool with points, edges and faces depending on the purpose of moving entities. So once we anchored this move handle to this point, we can use the up to option and choose this point as the target geometry. Once you select that point, you can see that the move handle center is coinciding with the point we selected as an up to geometry. Let's look at this anchor option for one more time. Let me undo this operation. Let me select the hole once again. So let's see if we can coincide this whole axis with the axis of this cylindrical surface. Right now, when we selected this hole, our move handle is referencing to something else other than the axis of these holes. Let's use this anchor option and select the axis. As we have learned, for selecting the axis, we can use or select the cylindrical surface. We can see that the move handle is now referencing or anchored to the axis of this hole. We can then use the up to option and select the target geometry as the axis of this cylinder. So let's choose the cylindrical surface. You can see that the hole is moved to the new location and now coinciding the two hole axes. So this is how the referencing works for the move handle. Let's now look at how we can rotate the geometries using move tool. Let's look at rotating this hole. For rotation, let's try to rotate one face at a time for the time being. Let me select this face. You can see that the move handle is anchored to the center of the face. So you have seen now, by default, the move handle is anchored to the center of the geometry entity we selected. If we select a face, it will anchor to the center of the face. If we select the edge, it will anchor to the midpoint of the line or an edge. And if a solid is selected, then it is anchored to the solid center or a CG. Let's get back to the face selection and rotation. When we select this surface, the move handle is updated and anchored to the center as we know. Let's select a direction of rotation. As we have seen, these are the three direction of rotations we can use for this surface. Let's choose this direction, this red arrow. Once we select this red arrow as our direction of rotation, you can see that the other arrows are grayed out or deactivated. You can now hold the left click and move the cursor in the direction of rotation of that red arrow. You can see that the face is being rotated about the center of the surface, or we can say about the anchor point. At any given point of time, you can release the left click and provide the dimension of the angle. Once you type in the value and hit enter, the angle will be updated and the move operation will be ended. You can click anywhere on the screen to end the move option or come out of the move option. There is one small feature to note with respect to specifying the angle value for rotation. Let me undo the last step. Please note here that if you move in the direction of an arrowhead, then you can type in the value between 0 to 360 degree. You can see that the values are starting from 0 till 360 degree. So we can change the value for 20 degree and you can see the result. Let me undo this and try to rotate this face in the opposite direction. So if you move in the direction opposite to the arrowhead, then the angles start from 360 towards 0. You can see the angle number over here. Hence, for 20-degree rotation, you can type -20 and hit enter. The face will be rotated exactly by 20 degree. Software will calculate the rotation angle by subtracting 20 from 360, which is 340 degrees as you can see here. Let's undo this step to understand one more point related to anchoring or anchor point. When we rotated this face, you could see that it was rotating about this move handle anchor point. And that is why it will be important to see where that anchor point is located on the geometry you are moving. You can get different rotation outcome if this anchor is placed at some other locations. We looked at changing the location of this move handle using the anchor tool here. However, there is another way of doing this, which is kind of a shortcut and a dynamic tool. In the move handle, you can see a yellow ball at the center of the move tool. This yellow ball can be dragged to a new location by holding the left click on it. You can now move the cursor to place it on a different location. Let me place it here. You can see that the move handle is now referencing or anchored to this point. And now when we will move or rotate this face, it will be rotated about this point. Let's now try to rotate this face about this axis. So we can choose this direction. Let's choose this direction, hold the left click and move in the direction of selection. You can see that the rotation outcome is entirely different. So for rotation, it is always important to see where the move handle is anchored. Let's now try to move the complete hole for rotation. Let's anchor this triad or move handle to the axis of this hole. You can do this using this anchor tool or directly clicking this anchor yellow ball over the axis. You can see that once we anchor or move the yellow ball over the axis, the anchor yellow ball is turned to a blue square or a blue block. This is an indicator that it is now referenced to this axis. Let's select this axis direction and hold the left click and move in that direction. The complete hole is moving in that direction. You can pause any time, release the left click and provide the angle value. Let me undo this step for few more options. We have seen in the session about pull that if we select this face and adjacent edges and try to pull this surface and edges straight in and out, it can pull ignoring the angle constraint. It will pull it into the slot straight in the direction. So it doesn't respect the angle constraint of the adjacent faces, which were these angled faces. Let me undo this option to try doing the same thing using move option. Let's now try the move option. The face and edges are already selected. So let me switch to the move tool. So let me move using the default direction. You can see that the face and the edge are moving together in the direction, and the angles are adjusting accordingly for the adjacent faces. So you could see that the angles of the adjacent face was also changing. So this is kind of a unique to the move tool. So this option is useful when you want the face to be of the same size when moving and let other connected faces to change in shape and size. Let's look at one last thing. Let me undo this. With move, we can move and copy the geometries at the same time. We looked at this option during the sketching chapter when we copied and moved the sketches using move tool. You can just use the control key for doing this. Let's select this hole. The move option is already selected. For the translation direction, select this red line as our translation direction. And now before moving it, hold the control key and move the mouse cursor in the translation direction. You can see that a copy of the hole is created. You can release the mouse key or enter the dimension. So this is how the move and copy works together. The one thing to note here that the new position is not linked to the original location of the hole or original hole. We are simply copying and moving this geometry by a specified distance. This is not like a pattern. We are not creating a pattern here. Pattern is something else. Pattern will be covered in a separate chapter. Those options are placed over here. For the moving distance using a copy, we can also use the up to option. Let's try that too. Let me try to create a copy of this feature up to the axis of this hole. So let's select the entire surfaces of this feature. You can see that the move handle is already anchored to the axis of this feature as this feature is completely cylindrical in nature. Let's select first the direction of translation so that we can create a copy of this feature in this direction. Now let's select the up to option. Now before clicking this axis of this hole for the up to geometry, hold the control key and now select this surface for the axis. You can see that a copy of this feature is created up to the axis of this hole. So this way we can combine the up to and the copy option. Let's talk about one more option related to using up to. When you select this up to option and do not click on any particular direction or any distance, then the geometry will be moved to overlap or coincide with the move handle anchor with whatever up to geometry we have selected. Let's try this option. For example, for this feature, I am using the up to option and selecting the axis of this hole. You will see that once we select the cylinder surface for the axis, this feature will be moved over here without providing any direction or any distance. So once you use this option with up to, it will directly move the geometry to the particular entity which we have selected for an up to. It does not need to provide any direction. Let's try some more options or try to move some more features using the move tool. Let me undo this option. You can see here that we have this feature which we can move the entire feature using the move option to some other location. In order to do this, let's select this whole feature using a box option. You can create the box from left to right and pause to see whatever surfaces are selected. And once you release the left click, you will see all the surfaces that are selected. The selection information can be appearing over here. Currently the 56 faces of this feature are selected. You can now just click the translation direction and hold the left click and move this feature in this direction. You can see the whole feature is now moving. You can also widen this particular slot by selecting only these surfaces. So this way you can have the flexibility to move either the entire feature or some of the faces of that feature. Let's try to move this cap of the fuel tank. For this, let's select the whole cap using the box option. You can see that once we selected this whole cap, the move direction is set as default like this. But if we want to move this cap in this particular direction, then we need to change the translation direction. We have learned that using this option, we can change the translation directions. Let's click this, and if we want to move this cap in this direction, then we can select this edge. Once we select this edge, you can see that the move anchor or the move handle is oriented in that particular direction of the edge. We can now click this direction and move this cap in this direction. We can also release the left click and provide the distance. Just type in the number and then hit enter. So it will move the cap exactly by 10 millimeters. Hope you have learned all the options in the move tool for changing the location of the geometries. This concludes the session over here. Please don't forget to explore the other chapters from this training module. Thanks once again for watching the video.